I'm Basil, 32, a software engineer from Boston who once thought family meant unconditional support. That illusion shattered when my sister Eliza's wedding text arrived. "You're not invited to the wedding. Goodbye, loser." Worse, my mom Catherine added a heart emoji in agreement. After years of financing their lifestyle, I simply replied, "Perfect. Then I'll remove my payments from the account." They laughed it off in our group chat, mocking my empty threat. By morning, their amusement transformed into panic. Before I continue this story of betrayal and redemption, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button to see how I turned my family's ultimate rejection into the wake-up call they never expected. Growing up in a modest brick townhouse in Dorchester, Boston, our family wasn't wealthy, but we had each other. My childhood memories are filled with the smell of Mom's Sunday pot roast, Dad's hearty laugh during Patriots games, and Eliza's small hand in mine as we navigated our neighborhood adventures. We weren't just siblings. We were each other's best friends and confidants. 2 years younger than me, Eliza had these bright hazel eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and I made it my personal mission to hear that laugh every day. When I was 12 and Eliza was 10, our parents' marriage crumbled under the weight of financial stress and growing resentment. The divorce wasn't just paperwork. It was the earthquake that reconfigured our entire family landscape. Dad moved 3 states away for a job opportunity, his presence reduced to weekend phone calls that gradually became monthly, then holiday-only conversations. Mom Catherine was suddenly both parents, working double shifts as a hospital administrator to keep our lives somewhat stable. The real shift came when I turned 15. Mom met Richard, a financial consultant whose tailored suits and German luxury car signaled the comfortable lifestyle that had eluded our family for years. Their whirlwind romance culminated in a wedding that cost more than our annual expenses. Suddenly, we moved from our modest townhouse to Richard's sprawling colonial in Brookline, complete with a heated pool and landscaped gardens. While our address changed, something more fundamental shifted too. Mom and Eliza took to the new lifestyle with enthusiasm, embracing designer clothes, country club memberships, and social events with Richard's well-connected friends. I found myself more drawn to my computer, coding late into the night, finding comfort in the logical world of programming where effort directly translated to results. Despite the growing distance between our interests, Eliza and I maintained our bond through those early teenage years. I remember teaching her to ride a bike in our new neighborhood, her determined expression as she wobbled down the street, refusing to let me hold the seat any longer than necessary. When some rich kid at her new school made fun of her Boston accent, I spent hours helping her practice pronunciation while reassuring her that her voice was perfect just as it was. We had our secret language too, a combination of made-up words and hand signals that confused our parents and gave us our private world. Zamboni meant we needed to talk privately. Flibbergibbet was our code for feeling sad, but not wanting to show it. A quick tug on an earlobe meant, "I've got your back," without saying a word. The divorce had created a foxhole mentality, us against the world. When Mom was working late before Richard entered our lives, I'd make dinner for Eliza, helping her with homework afterward. When she had nightmares, it was my room she ran to, not Mom's. I held her hand during thunderstorms and coached her through school presentations. These weren't burdens. They were the threads weaving our sibling relationship into something special. College applications marked the beginning of the real separation. I focused on computer science programs with strong scholarship opportunities, understanding that even with Richard in the picture, I wanted financial independence. Meanwhile, Eliza set her sights on exclusive private colleges with prestigious social connections. Mom and Richard encouraged her ambitions, while my practical choices earned raised eyebrows at family dinners. When I received a partial scholarship to MIT, I still needed to work nearly full-time to cover the remaining tuition and living expenses. Despite my own financial struggles, when Eliza enrolled at an expensive liberal arts college in Vermont, I automatically set up a monthly transfer to help with her books and spending money. It wasn't a huge amount, $300 from my campus IT job and weekend work at a local tech repair shop, but it represented countless hours of work. Our first real argument about money came during her sophomore year. She called asking for an emergency $1,000 for a spring break trip to Cancun with her new sorority sisters. When I explained that I couldn't afford it while paying my own rent and tuition, her response stunned me. "But you're so good with computers. Can't you just make money appear or something?" Richard says tech people are all rolling in cash. This trip is really important for my social standing. That conversation revealed how completely disconnected our worlds had become. Still, wanting to maintain our relationship, I set up a joint family account where I deposited a portion of my earnings each month, ostensibly for emergencies, family gifts, and shared expenses. Mom, Richard, and Eliza were all on the account, a gesture of trust and continued commitment to our family bond, despite the growing differences in our values. Those college years taught me something important about family, that sometimes love means continuing to show up, even when the relationship becomes increasingly one-sided. I held on to the memories of my little sister's hand in mine, hoping the core of our connection would survive the transformation of our family dynamic. After graduating with honors from MIT, I joined a promising tech startup, developing innovative mobile payment solutions. The company culture was electric. Brilliant minds working 18-hour days fueled by passion and ramen noodles, convinced we were building the next revolutionary platform. My starting salary was modest, but the equity package held the promise of significant wealth if we succeeded. I lived in a cramped studio apartment with second-hand furniture, pouring everything into this career gamble. 8 months later, our primary investor pulled out, and the company collapsed overnight. Suddenly unemployed with Boston rent due and student loans entering repayment, I faced my first real financial crisis. Mom suggested I move back to the Brookline house, but Richard's conditions made it clear I wouldn't be welcome unless I contributed appropriately and followed their house rules, despite being 23 years old. Instead of accepting their conditional help, I took 3 contract jobs simultaneously: day coding for an insurance company, evening remote work for a West Coast startup, and weekend IT support for local businesses. Those months of grinding taught me self-reliance in ways my education never could, sleeping just 4 hours nightly while building my professional network and savings. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A bug-fixing contract led to a conversation with a senior developer who recognized my potential. Within weeks, I joined his team at an established tech company with a competitive salary and comprehensive benefits. My innovative approach to solving a critical database vulnerability earned me rapid promotion to senior developer within 18 months. While my career flourished, I maintained my modest lifestyle, driving the same reliable Honda I'd had since college and living in a comfortable but unassuming apartment. My priorities were building substantial savings, investing wisely, and continuing to help my family, values that increasingly conflicted with my family's focus on status and appearances. My financial arrangements with them evolved as my income grew. Mom had developed chronic migraines requiring specialized treatment not fully covered by insurance, so I set up automatic monthly payments to her medical account. When Eliza graduated with substantial student loans despite Richard's contribution, the experience of her exclusive school had apparently required every possible extracurricular expense. I quietly assumed payments for half of her debt burden. The family vacation fund was another significant expense. Each year, Mom, Richard, and Eliza planned elaborate international trips, Mediterranean cruises, African safaris, Asian tours, with the understanding that I would contribute a third of the cost. Curiously, the actual invitations to join these trips rarely materialized. When they did, scheduled dates mysteriously conflicted with my immovable work commitments, or the planned activities centered around Richard's business connections with little consideration for my interests. Every month, substantial deposits automatically flowed from my account into our shared family fund, a financial umbilical cord. I couldn't bring myself to cut despite the growing evidence that my role in the family had become primarily financial. The social divide widened as Eliza graduated and secured a position at a prestigious marketing firm through Richard's connections. Her Instagram transformed into a carefully curated showcase of rooftop cocktail parties, weekend getaways to Martha's Vineyard, and charity galas where she mingled with Boston's elite. My occasional appearances in her social media decreased, then disappeared entirely. When Eliza introduced her boyfriend Harrison Whitfield at a family dinner, The contrast between our worlds became painfully obvious. From a prominent banking family with deep New England roots, Harrison exuded the polished confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. His conversation centered around sailing competitions, his family's Cape Cod compound, and the exclusive clubs where he held membership. "And what exactly do you do with computers all day, Basil?" he asked during dessert, his tone suggesting he was inquiring about an exotic but somewhat distasteful hobby. Before I could respond about my work leading cybersecurity protocols for major financial institutions, Eliza jumped in. "Oh, Basil fixes things when they break. Kind of like IT support but with more complicated problems," she explained, dramatically simplifying my role as chief security architect. "That must be fulfilling," Harrison replied, clearly struggling to show interest. "My cousin tried coding once during a summer program, but he found it rather tedious. He's in venture capital now, much more suitable for someone with his background." These family dinners became exercises in restraint, as I weathered subtle put-downs about everything from my career choice to my clothing preferences. Mom and Richard would exchange glances when I mentioned my recent promotion or project success, their congratulations feeling perfunctory compared to the effusive praise lavished on Eliza's minor workplace accomplishments. The warning signs of their growing resentment became impossible to ignore. Once, arriving early for Sunday dinner, I overheard Richard in the study with his country club friends. "Catherine's son?" "Yes, he does something with computers. Successful enough, I suppose, but lacking the social graces for proper Boston circles. Bit of an embarrassment at events, honestly. Eliza, thankfully, has embraced our lifestyle beautifully." More painful was Mom's response. "We're working on Basil. He's always been the difficult one, so resistant to guidance. Thank goodness Eliza understands the importance of connections and appearance." Despite these hurtful revelations, I continued attempting to maintain our family relationship, sending thoughtful birthday gifts, remembering important anniversaries, and providing support whenever asked. For Christmas, I spent weeks programming a digital family photo frame for Mom that automatically updated with new family pictures, only to later discover it hidden in a guest room closet, apparently not fitting the living room's carefully designed aesthetic. The previous Thanksgiving became a turning point in my understanding of my family status. Arriving at the house, I discovered an elaborate dinner setting for 20 people, Richard's business associates and their families. Despite being the son of the hostess, I found my name card at a folding table in the adjoining sunroom with the children under 12. My placement an unmistakable statement about my position in the family hierarchy. When I quietly asked Mom about the seating arrangement, her response was revealing. "Basil, Harrison's family is here, and they're very particular about dinner conversation. We thought you'd be more comfortable away from all the business and social discussions." The message was clear. I was a potential embarrassment, best kept away from important connections. That night, driving back to my apartment, I realized how dramatically our family dynamic had shifted. The brother who had once been his sister's hero and protector had become an inconvenient relation to be managed and marginalized, valued for financial contribution but not for presence or personality. The engagement announcement came through a mass email rather than a personal call. "Eliza Mercer and Harrison Whitfield are delighted to announce their engagement." The attached photo showed them on the deck of a yacht, the Boston skyline glittering behind them as Eliza displayed a diamond ring that probably cost more than my annual salary. I immediately called to congratulate her, but the call went to voicemail. My text received a brief, "Thanks, so excited," response 3 days later. The engagement party invitations went out to nearly 200 people, with mine conspicuously absent. After waiting a week, I finally called Mom. "Oh, Basil, I'm sure your invitation just got lost in the mail," she said, her voice carrying that artificial brightness that had become her standard tone with me. "Of course you're invited. It's at the Whitfield estate in Manchester by the sea this Saturday. Black tie, of course. And Basil, please wear that navy suit we got you for Christmas, not your usual." Choices. The engagement party was an exercise in navigating social exclusion. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres among Boston's elite, while I stood awkwardly alone, recognizing no one. When I finally found Eliza surrounded by her sorority sisters, her greeting was brief and distracted. "Basil, you made it. Have you met? Actually, everyone's busy right now. Maybe catch up later?" She was gone before I could respond, disappearing into a crowd of people who apparently warranted more attention. Harrison's parents, Theodore and Margaret Whitfield, epitomized old Boston money, poised, polished, and subtly intimidating. When Mom eagerly introduced me, their assessment was immediate and dismissive. "The programmer brother?" "Yes," Theodore nodded, his handshake brief. "Harrison mentioned you work with computers. My personal assistant handles our family's IT needs, quite good with the email problems and such." Despite this chilly reception, I made genuine efforts to connect with Harrison, believing that finding common ground with my future brother-in-law was important for Eliza's sake. Finding him alone by the bar, I initiated conversation about his interest in sailing, one of the few details I'd gleaned about him. "I've actually been learning to sail at the community boating program on the Charles," I offered. "Nothing like your racing experience, but I've found it really peaceful being out on the water." Harrison seemed momentarily surprised by the common interest, and for 20 minutes, we had what felt like an authentic conversation about navigation techniques and favorite sailing spots along the Massachusetts coast. It was the longest interaction I'd had with any family member that evening, and it left me cautiously optimistic about potential friendship with my new brother-in-law. That brief connection made the subsequent wedding planning exclusion even more confusing. Initial discussions had centered around what Eliza described as an intimate family ceremony at a historic Boston church, followed by a reception for close friends and family. "I'm thinking 60 people maximum," she had said during a rare Sunday visit to my apartment, something meaningful rather than showy. Wanting to support this vision, I immediately offered financial help. "I'd like to contribute to your wedding fund. Maybe I could cover the photographer or the flowers, whatever would be most helpful." Eliza had seemed genuinely touched. "That's really sweet, Basil. Let me talk to Harrison and figure out where we could use the help." Within weeks, the intimate family ceremony morphed into an extravagant 3-day event as the Whitfields became increasingly involved. The guest list exploded from 60 to 300 people. The historic Boston church was abandoned in favor of the Whitfields' exclusive country club. The modest reception became a black-tie gala requiring a professional event planning team. My offers to help with specific expenses went unanswered. Planning meetings happened without my knowledge. When I asked Mom about wedding developments, her responses became increasingly vague. "Oh, it's all coming together beautifully. The Whitfields have such exquisite taste. Margaret has really taken Eliza under her wing with all this." As Eliza transformed into what her bridesmaids affectionately termed bridezilla mode, the financial expectations from family members grew correspondingly. Richard casually mentioned at dinner that the Mercer family would be covering the rehearsal dinner, an event that had expanded from a simple family meal to a formal affair for 75 people at one of Boston's most expensive restaurants. "We're all contributing appropriately to make this special for Eliza," Mom added, with a pointed look in my direction. "Family image is so important at events like this." "I've already offered to help," I reminded them. "Eliza hasn't told me where my contribution would be most useful." "Well, perhaps something will come up," Richard replied dismissively. "Though Harrison's family is handling most of the significant elements, they have certain standards, you understand." The materialistic focus of the wedding planning increasingly overshadowed any genuine celebration of Eliza and Harrison's relationship. Conversations centered entirely around designer dresses, premium alcohol selections, celebrity florists, and which guests represented important social connections. Not once did I hear anyone discuss the couple's future plans, shared values, or the meaning of the commitment they were making. 1 week before the fateful group text, I discovered through a banking notification that substantial withdrawals had been made from our shared family account, the one I primarily funded, for wedding-related expenses. Further investigation revealed payments to a luxury transportation service, custom wedding favors, and deposits for bridesmaids' accommodations at a 5-star hotel. That evening, I called my best friend Derek, seeking perspective before confronting my family. "They're using your money without even telling you, while simultaneously excluding you from everything," Derek summarized. Bro, you realize this is completely messed up, right? You need to set some serious boundaries. They're still my family, I said, the justification sounding weak even to my own ears. Family doesn't treat family like an ATM, Derek countered. When was the last time any of them asked about your life, your work, your relationships? Hell, do they even know what you actually do for a living? His questions hit uncomfortably close to home. When was the last meaningful conversation I'd had with any of them? When had they shown interest in my life beyond financial contributions? Deciding to address the situation directly, I texted Eliza requesting coffee to discuss my role in the wedding. Her initial response was enthusiastic, suggesting we meet at a cafe near her apartment. The day before our scheduled meeting, she canceled. Sorry, emergency cake tasting with Harrison's mom. Reschedule soon. No alternative date was offered. My follow-up text asking specifically about the shared account expenses went unanswered. 3 days later, the message arrived that would permanently alter our family dynamic. The notification appeared on a Tuesday evening as I was finishing a complex security protocol implementation for a major client. A new message in the family group chat: Mom, Richard, Eliza, and me. Opening it revealed a paragraph from Eliza that hit like a physical blow. Basil, after careful consideration with Harrison and his family, we've decided you won't be receiving an invitation to the wedding. Your awkwardness at social events, inappropriate conversation topics, and general inability to fit in with our circles would create uncomfortable situations for important guests. This is a crucial networking event for Harrison's career and my future social standing. Goodbye, loser. The message was shocking enough, but what followed was worse. Mom immediately replied with a heart emoji. Richard added, "Completely understandable decision, princess. Your day should be perfect without complications." Several laughing emojis from both followed. They were actively enjoying this cruel exclusion. I stared at the screen. The familiar family chat suddenly transformed into a firing squad. My hands physically shook as the implications sank in. After years of financial and emotional support, after helping raise Eliza through our parents' divorce, after working multiple jobs to contribute to her education, I was being discarded because I might embarrass them in front of important people. My immediate reaction wasn't to respond emotionally. Instead, I methodically began reviewing bank statements and financial records, systematically cataloging every contribution I'd made to the family over the past decade. The total was staggering. Nearly $200,000 in direct contributions, not including gifts, emergency expenses, and the ongoing payments for Mom's medical treatments and Eliza's student loans. With this information compiled, I called Angela, a close friend from college who had witnessed the gradual deterioration of my family relationships. "This is beyond toxic, Basil," she said after I read her the messages. "This isn't just excluding you from a wedding. This is them telling you exactly how they see you, as someone they're ashamed of, whose only value is financial. You know what you need to do. If I respond emotionally, they'll just use it to further justify excluding me," I reasoned aloud. "They'll say I'm unstable or difficult." "Then don't give them ammunition," Angela advised. "Hit them where it actually matters to them." After considering various responses, I typed a single line: "Perfect. Then I'll remove my payments from the account. Best wishes on your special day." The response was immediate and revealing. Eliza replied first. "Lol. Whatever, Basil. Your tiny contributions are hardly essential. Harrison's family is covering everything important anyway." Mom chimed in. "Don't be childish, Basil. Family has responsibilities regardless of personal feelings." Richard added, "Classic tantrum when you don't get your way." This is exactly why Eliza made the right decision. Instead of engaging further, I set my phone aside and opened my laptop. Over the next 3 hours, I systematically dismantled the financial support structure I'd built for them. I canceled automatic transfers to the shared account. I contacted my bank to remove my name from joint accounts, after transferring my portion of the funds. I suspended payments on Eliza's student loans and Mom's medical expense account, after calculating exactly how much I had contributed beyond my fair share. For each account, I set up automated emails that would deliver detailed records of my past contributions, along with notification of the terminated support. These were scheduled to send at 7 the following morning, early enough to ensure they'd see them before starting their day, but allowing me a night of uninterrupted reflection. That evening became a journey through family history as I sorted through old photographs and mementos. A crayon drawing Eliza had made when she was 8. Best brother ever scrawled in childish handwriting above stick figures holding hands. The MIT acceptance letter I had shown Mom with such pride, only to receive a distracted, "In the Lizas. That's nice," dear as she focused on Eliza's prom dress fitting. Near midnight, my phone rang. Uncle Frank, Mom's brother, and the only family member who had consistently shown genuine interest in my life. Unlike Richard, Frank had built his construction business from nothing, understanding the value of hard work and authenticity. "Just heard about the wedding situation from your mother," he said without preamble. "She's trying to spin it, but I read between the lines. You doing okay, kid?" For the first time since receiving the text, I allowed myself to acknowledge the emotional impact. "Not really, Uncle Frank. I think I've been fooling myself about my place in this family for years. You've been buying their affection, and that never works," he said bluntly. "Catherine changed when she married Richard. Eliza followed her lead. But you stayed true to yourself, and that makes them uncomfortable. Reminds them of choices they've made." "I'm cutting them off financially," I admitted. "Is that too harsh?" Uncle Frank's laugh held no humor. "Harsh would be publishing those texts for all their fancy friends to see. Financial independence is just healthy boundaries. Long overdue, if you ask me." That conversation solidified my resolve to permanently change my financial relationship with my family. This wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect and finally acknowledging the one-sided nature of our relationship. As I finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, I felt a strange combination of grief and liberation, mourning the family I had wanted while freeing myself from the family that actually existed. At 7:15 the next morning, I met with Janet, my financial advisor, bringing complete documentation of the family financial entanglements I needed to address. Her professional demeanor briefly faltered as she reviewed the extent of my one-sided contributions. "Basil, I've been advising you for 3 years, and you've never mentioned these substantial ongoing family obligations," she said, frowning at the spreadsheet. "This represents nearly 30% of your annual income. I considered it normal family support," I explained, the justification sounding hollow even to my ears. "There's supporting family, and then there's being taken advantage of," she replied carefully. "These are completely different situations." We spent 2 hours creating a proper separation plan. For accounts where my name appeared, we documented all previous contributions before removing me from the account. For ongoing payments like Mom's medical expenses and Eliza's student loans, we calculated exactly what portion represented my fair contribution versus what had been shifted to me inappropriately. Janet helped draft formal letters explaining exactly what financial arrangements were changing and why, all in professionally neutral language that couldn't be dismissed as emotional reaction. My phone had begun ringing incessantly around 7:30, but I let everything go to voicemail during the meeting. By 9, I had 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, and 42 text messages. Mom's voicemails evolved from confusion to anger to panic. 7:32 a.m. "Basil, call me immediately to explain these ridiculous emails." 8:05 a.m. "This childish behavior is completely unacceptable. Call me now." 8:47 a.m. "Please, Basil, we need to discuss this immediately. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." Eliza's texts showed a similar progression. 7:35 a.m. "Very funny with the account thing. Joke's over." 8:10 a.m. "You can't actually be serious about this. Call me." 8:52 a.m. "Basil, please, I'm sorry about what I said. Can we please talk? This isn't fair." Most revealing were Richard's messages, which quickly escalated to threats. 7:40 a.m. "Completely unprofessional behavior. Reconsider immediately." 8:15 a.m. "You have responsibilities to this family regardless of personal feelings." 8:58 a.m. "If you don't restore these accounts immediately, There will be serious consequences for your relationship with this family. Final warning. I deliberately chose not to respond immediately. This wasn't a negotiation or an emotional reaction they could dismiss. This was the establishment of new boundaries that should have existed long ago. By 11 that morning, the practical consequences of my financial separation had begun cascading through their carefully planned social facade. My email pinged with a forwarded message from Eliza, the wedding venue threatening to cancel due to a missed payment deadline. The non-refundable deposit had apparently been refundable after all when the subsequent payment didn't arrive. A text from Mom included a screenshot from her credit card company declining a final payment on Eliza's wedding dress alterations due to exceeding her credit limit. Without my regular contributions supplementing her spending, her carefully managed credit balancing act had collapsed. Most significantly, Harrison's father had apparently started asking uncomfortable questions about the sudden financial disarray. A panicked voicemail from Eliza revealed that Theodore Whitfield had expressed serious concerns about financial responsibility and transparency after learning of the venue payment issue. By early afternoon, extended family members began reaching out, having received confused calls from Mom seeking emergency loans. My cousin Taylor texted, "What's happening with Aunt Catherine? She just asked Dad for $15,000 for a wedding emergency, but wouldn't explain details." I maintained digital silence throughout the day, focusing on work while the situation unfolded. At 6:30 that evening, the inevitable confrontation arrived at my door. Mom, Richard, and Eliza appearing unannounced at my apartment, their expressions a mixture of anger and desperation. "We need to talk," Richard announced, attempting to push past me into the apartment. "Yes, we do," I agreed, blocking the entrance. "But not with this approach. If you want a conversation, we can meet tomorrow at a neutral location with clear agenda points. Tonight isn't happening." "You've destroyed everything," Eliza cried, makeup streaked from tears. "The Whitfields are questioning the entire wedding now because of your petty revenge." "This isn't revenge," I corrected calmly. "This is me stopping voluntary financial support after being explicitly told I'm not considered family except for my contributions." "It was just a joke that went too far," Mom insisted, her voice taking on the cajoling tone she'd used during my childhood when trying to smooth over problems. "You know how stressed Eliza gets." "She didn't mean any of it." "The heart emoji you added suggested you found it pretty amusing," I noted, as did Richard's supportive response. "But we can discuss all this tomorrow, after everyone has calmed down." "There's nothing to discuss," Richard blustered. "You have responsibilities to this family. Your mother and sister need your support." "No," I said firmly. "What they need is my money. Those are entirely different things. And after years of being treated as an embarrassing ATM, that arrangement is permanently terminated." As they continued protesting, I closed the door with a final comment. "Uncle Frank's house, 2 o'clock tomorrow. I'll bring complete financial records. You bring honest explanations. Or don't come, and this becomes our new normal." Their protests continued from the hallway for nearly 20 minutes before they finally departed. That night I slept more peacefully than I had in years. The weight of unspoken resentment and one-sided obligation finally lifted from my shoulders. Uncle Frank's modest craftsman home in Jamaica Plain provided the neutral ground needed for our family meeting. At my request, he had arranged for his longtime friend Patricia, a family therapist, to mediate the conversation. The living room was arranged with deliberate formality, chairs positioned to avoid anyone feeling cornered or dominant in the space. Mom, Richard, and Eliza arrived precisely at 2, their expressions guarded. Richard's typical commanding presence seemed diminished, his designer suit incongruous in Frank's practical, working-class home. Mom had clearly spent considerable effort on her appearance, perhaps believing presentation could somehow influence the outcome. Most revealing was Eliza's subdued demeanor, the confident socialite replaced by someone who looked like she hadn't slept. "Thank you for coming," Patricia began after introductions. "Basil has asked for this mediated conversation to address long-standing family dynamics that have reached a breaking point. We'll establish some ground rules. Each person will have uninterrupted time to speak. We'll focus on specific behaviors rather than character judgments, and everyone agrees to consider perspectives different from their own. Can we all commit to these principles? After reluctant nods from my family, I opened my laptop and connected it to Frank's TV, displaying a carefully organized presentation. I'd like to start by establishing facts rather than emotions, I explained. This first slide shows the complete history of my financial contributions to our family over the past 8 years. Green indicates regularly scheduled transfers to shared accounts. Blue represents emergency assistance. Red shows wedding-related expenses. The cumulative total at the bottom of the spreadsheet caused visible reactions. Mom's hand covering her mouth, Richard shifting uncomfortably, Eliza staring at the floor. The next slides contain text message and email histories documenting the progression of our family relationship, I continued, methodically displaying dozens of exchanges, showing increasingly dismissive responses to my attempts at genuine connection, contrasted with immediate engagement when financial support was needed. Finally, I said, displaying the wedding exclusion text and subsequent responses, this is what prompted my decision to terminate financial support. Not just the exclusion itself, but the evident enjoyment you all took in delivering this message. Richard attempted to interrupt, but Patricia gently reminded him of the ground rules. When my presentation concluded, the room remained silent for nearly a full minute. Eliza, would you like to respond first? Patricia suggested. My sister looked up, her usual confidence completely absent. I don't even know what to say. Seeing it all laid out like this, her voice cracked. The wedding text was horrible. I can't believe I wrote those things to you. Why did you? I asked simply. What followed was a breakdown I hadn't anticipated. Eliza dissolved into tears, eventually revealing a complex web of insecurities and external pressures that had been building for months. Harrison's family has been suffocating me with expectations, she admitted between sobs, especially his mother. She scrutinizes everything, my friends, my family, my background. She made comments about you being new money tech, and how that might reflect poorly on their family reputation. So you threw me under the bus to impress your future in-laws, I clarified. It's more complicated than that, Eliza continued. I've been jealous of you for years, Basil. You've always been so secure in yourself. You never needed their approval. You built your own life, while I've been desperately trying to fit into this world that never quite accepts me. That text was awful, but it wasn't really about you. It was me trying to prove my loyalty to their social hierarchy. Her confession shifted something in the room's dynamic. For the first time in years, I glimpsed the little sister I had protected, rather than the status-obsessed stranger she had become. I've been terrible to you, she concluded, looking directly at me for the first time. After everything you did for me growing up, after all your support, I don't expect forgiveness, but I am truly sorry, and I want a chance to rebuild whatever might be left between us. Mom's response proved more difficult to extract. Initially defensive, she attempted to minimize both the wedding text, just wedding stress talking, and the years of emotional distance. We've all been busy with our own lives. It took Uncle Frank's intervention to break through her deflections. Katie, he said, using her childhood nickname, remember when we were kids and Dad would always say, I was the athletic one and you were the smart one? Remember how that boxing in of our identities hurt both of us for years? You're doing the same thing to your son, except you've decided his only value is financial support. That's not true, Mom protested weakly. Isn't it? Frank pressed. When was the last time you asked about his work? Not what he earns, but what actually matters to him about it. When did you last introduce him to your friends with pride instead of apology? When did you defend him rather than join in when Richard or Eliza made him the family punchline? Mom's carefully composed facade finally cracked. I don't know when it changed, she whispered. After the divorce, Basil was so capable, so self-sufficient. Eliza needed me more, or I thought she did. Then Richard came along, and suddenly we had access to this world I'd always felt excluded from. I got caught up in it all. She turned to me, tears forming. Somewhere along the way, I started taking your strength for granted. I assumed you didn't need the attention or validation because you seemed fine without it. That wasn't fair. No matter how independent you are, You deserved a mother who championed you. The heart emoji? I asked quietly. Was inexcusable, she acknowledged. I was trying to support Eliza, but I should have immediately called out that text as completely unacceptable. I failed you fundamentally as a mother in that moment. Richard's contribution to the conversation was predictably self-serving, focusing primarily on family image and financial arrangements. Patricia skillfully redirected him multiple times, eventually extracting an acknowledgement that his treatment of me had been perhaps unnecessarily dismissive, the closest thing to an apology his pride would allow. As the 4-hour conversation approached its conclusion, I outlined my terms for moving forward. I'm willing to rebuild relationships with those genuinely interested in mutual respect and authentic connection. But certain things are non-negotiable. First, complete financial independence for all parties. I'll honor specific commitments I've made, like the portion of Mom's medical expenses we agreed I'd cover, but no more unlimited access to my accounts. Second, respect is mandatory. No more dismissive comments or social exclusion. Third, I expect genuine interest in my life, not just my financial contribution to yours. Looking directly at Eliza, I added, regarding the wedding, I'll attend if invited sincerely, not out of financial panic. But my attendance would be as a brother who values our history and potential future relationship, not as a wallet to solve your budget crisis. Mom reached across the coffee table to take my hand, the first genuine physical contact we'd had in months. I want my son back in my life, whatever that takes. Eliza nodded through tears. Me too, and not because of money, because you're my brother, and I miss who we used to be. Richard's tight smile suggested his agreement was more pragmatic than heartfelt, but he nodded nevertheless. As they prepared to leave, Eliza lingered behind. Harrison actually asked about you yesterday, she said quietly. He said our sailing conversation at the engagement party was the only authentic interaction he had all night. He wanted to know if you might be willing to go sailing with him sometime. Her smile was tentative, but genuine. I think he's relieved to potentially have one family member who isn't obsessed with status. That unexpected revelation offered the first fragile hope that something positive might emerge from this painful reckoning, not just with my family of origin, but potentially with the new family connections forming through Eliza's marriage. The wedding that eventually took place bore little resemblance to the status-driven spectacle originally planned. The guest list shrank from 300 to 80 people, focusing on genuine relationships rather than business connections. The venue changed from the Whitfield's Country Club to the historic Boston Public Library courtyard, elegant but meaningful, as both Eliza and Harrison shared a love of literature. Most significantly, my role shifted from excluded embarrassment to honored family member. 3 weeks after our family meeting, Eliza and Harrison visited my apartment with a handwritten note asking if I would consider giving a reading during the ceremony. Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken, a poem that held special meaning in our childhood. We want the wedding to reflect what actually matters, Eliza explained, a new authenticity in her voice, not what impresses people who barely know us. The weeks leading up to the wedding revealed a gradual but meaningful shift in Harrison's family as well. Freed from the pressure of meeting Theodore and Margaret Whitfield's exacting social standards, Eliza began standing up for herself and her family. Surprisingly, this backbone earned her more respect from Harrison's parents than her previous attempts to conform ever had. Harrison himself proved to be more complex than my initial impression. During our sailing excursion on the Charles River, he confessed his own discomfort with his family's social expectations. I went along with all their networking obsessions because it seemed easier than fighting it, he admitted as we navigated around a buoy. Watching Eliza stand up to them recently made me realize I've been letting them dictate too much of my life too, including how I judged you when we first met. On the morning of the wedding, I arrived early at the library to find Eliza alone in the bride's room, surprisingly calm as she adjusted her simple but elegant dress. "Remember when we were kids and I made you play wedding with my stuffed animals?" she asked, smiling at the memory. "You always insisted on changing the traditional vows to include promises about always having ice cream in the freezer and never making the other person eat Brussels sprouts. Critical foundations of any successful marriage," I replied, returning her smile. I was so focused on the perfect wedding that I nearly forgot about the actual marriage part, she said, suddenly serious. Thank you for forcing me to confront who I was becoming. Even though it was painful, you probably saved not just our relationship but my relationship with Harrison too. Mom made her own attempt at reconciliation, arriving with a small blue box. Something borrowed, she explained, opening it to reveal Dad's cufflinks, the ones he had worn at his own wedding. I've kept these all these years. He would want you to wear them today as you stand up for your sister. The ceremony itself was intimate and genuine, a sharp contrast to the performance it had nearly become. When I delivered the Frost poem, I caught Uncle Frank wiping away tears and noticed Theodore Whitfield nodding appreciatively at the verse about choosing the road less traveled. At the reception, I gave a brief speech that acknowledged both the challenging past and hopeful future of our family relationships. Siblings have a unique bond, I said, raising my glass to Eliza and Harrison. We share history that shapes us, arguments that strengthen us, and love that sustains us even through difficult times. Eliza, we've traveled a complicated road to reach this celebration, but I wouldn't trade our journey for anything. It's taught us both what truly matters. The healing process extended beyond the wedding day. Our first Thanksgiving with new boundaries proved initially awkward. Richard still occasionally slipping into condescending comments, Mom sometimes reverting to old patterns of favoritism. But these moments were now addressed directly, rather than silently endured, creating space for more authentic interaction. Both individual and family therapy sessions became part of our recovery process. During one particularly powerful session, Mom finally acknowledged how her own insecurities had driven her to prioritize status and appearance over authentic connection. I was always the poor scholarship girl among wealthy classmates, she admitted. When Richard offered entry into that world, I grabbed it with both hands, terrified of ever going back to feeling less than. I pushed that same fear onto my children without realizing it. Trust rebuilt slowly, through actions rather than promises. Eliza began calling regularly just to check in, showing genuine interest in my projects and life. Mom started attending my company's public events, proudly introducing me to her friends without qualifiers or apologies. Even Richard, in his limited capacity for change, began occasionally asking substantive questions about my work. The most unexpected positive change came in my personal life. With the energy previously consumed by family drama now redirected, I found myself open to new relationships. Through Harrison's cousin Emma, I met Sophia, a brilliant architectural engineer whose straightforward manner and authentic approach to life proved immediately compelling. Our first date stretched from coffee to dinner to midnight conversations about everything from structural innovations to favorite childhood books. 6 months after the wedding, at a family dinner celebrating Uncle Frank's birthday, I brought Sophia to meet everyone. Watching her effortlessly navigate conversation with my formerly intimidating family, now significantly humbled by our reckoning, crystallized how dramatically things had changed. I never would have met Sophia if I hadn't stood up for myself, I told Uncle Frank as we watched her deep in animated conversation with Eliza about sustainable building materials. Funny how setting boundaries actually created space for better connections. Not funny, Frank corrected. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. Healthy relationships need honest foundations. You finally stopped building on quicksand. This journey transformed every aspect of my family relationships. What began with a cruel text message ultimately forced a reckoning that none of us could have navigated without that breaking point. The financial leverage I applied wasn't about punishment. It was about finally demanding the respect I'd earned through years of support and loyalty. The profound lesson I've carried forward is that true family isn't defined by obligation or financial dependency. It's built on mutual respect, authentic interest, and support that flows in all directions. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for those who've taken you for granted, is to stand firmly in your worth and refuse to accept anything less than the respect you deserve. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? Did it ultimately strengthen your relationships like it did mine, or did you discover that some relationships couldn't survive honest expectations? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of standing up for yourself resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more authentic stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful connections. Thank you for listening to my story.